What is the anatomy of a praise break? It's more than just chords and some, nice chords that we put together, something that we find on YouTube or something that somebody shows us. What is the structure of it? How do we start it and how do we stop it? Of course, there's no end to the many types of preacher chords that you can find online in any key in all 12 keys. However, there are 7 ways to effectively execute a praise break. Even if you think your chords are weak, you just whack and no one likes them, you must do these in order to be effective with this style of playing. Many musicians are afraid because they just don't know what these are. So let's discuss the anatomy of a praise break. I'm Chris Moses, and welcome to Gospel Progressions University, where I'm here to equip you as a church musician. Before we get into what these 7 things are, I want to talk about what and when. So what is a praise break versus, say, shouting chords or shout music? So praise break is when people do what they do, and the shouting chords or the shout music is what musicians do to accompany that, to kind of work hand in hand. The when would be the context that it's in, the musical context. Typically, you're going to have it at the end or near the end of a preacher's preaching. When you have them excited, they're playing the preacher chords, and then they're going to transition. A lot of times you'll have them more often than not into a praise break or playing shout music. The other part you're going to have it at is in the end of a song. At the end of a song, depending on where people are, the kind of feel of the atmosphere, and you can kind of feel where it's going to go. If you pay attention, it's actually something that is preceding the praise break / shout music. You would be hard pressed to find anyone having a dedicated time in the service to say, okay, now let us commence with the praise break, and 1 and 2. It doesn't work like that because it would be weird and awkward. As spontaneous as the praise break may seem, whenever you may be sitting in a church service or look at a YouTube video, this is the number one mistake that most musicians make that are just getting into this or not familiar with the style of music. They think it's spontaneous, so there isn't any practice. It has to be practiced. There is spontaneity, but it has to be practiced because it's just like any other piece of music. If you're trying to play something that you hardly know or no one else understands, you're going to be headed for a train wreck because you have no structure to it. You have the context, but there's no structure. You have to have a repertoire of routes, and that would help you in order to execute something like this when it needs to be executed. An intro and an outro, how you start it and how you leave it, especially how you start it, will make or break a praise break or make or break a praise break that wasn't intended, or shout music. So these are the 7 things I'm going to talk about here in this lesson. The first one is your setup and warm up. That's like your pre-praise break. The second one is the introduction to the route. The third one is the actual route itself. The fourth one is the main drive. Number 5 will be your breakdown, tension. Number 6 would be your secondary route or secondary route theme. And then you have your outro. With the setup and the warm-up, or the setup and warm-up, there's some type of anticipatory action taking place. Like, you can kind of anticipate and kind of feel where it's going. How do you know? Well, you can tell because you're not just breaking out just out of nowhere and you just start playing. Everybody's just shouting. That people try to do that, and it's weird. It's akin to kissing a person that you're attracted to the very first time you saw them. It takes a little bit of time to warm up, to get to kind of know the person, and you move in certain sequences before, the big culmination. And this is how a praise break or shout music is supposed to be. So there's going to be some type of exhortation or some kind of involvement with the speaker, sort of priming people and speaking to them in a particular way. Like you may hear something like, I'm gonna need a little bit of help up in here, and you hit them with a chord, And when people hear that, most of us have been primed and have been conditioned to know that something is happening. If you've been in church for any amount of time, this isn't a Rock of Ages, cleft for me, or like a rose trample on the ground, Michael W. Smith. They're about to go into into a shout, and so this is something that somebody says, and it's punctuated with something like that. So upon the punctuation, you built your first part of the tension, right? And then that's going to be broken by some kind of lick. And that's it. You're going to kind of pull back a little bit. What people tend to want to do, they want to play over the speaker. The person that's talking, you'll hear, they'll just do and all of this. And And you don't want to do that because the person it's too much hype. It's like somebody, getting tickled, but then they're just doing the same spot over and over and over again. That's going to get annoying after a while. So you want to jump in and then come out, and you want to implicate. Come in, come out. You do your lick and maybe a hit, all right? So if you got something like this, for example, this is the tease, it's sort of a tease. It's basically what it is. So you have the setup in the warm-up, right? You got your drum going, it's an A flat. And you're done. You may come back, and then you have something to that effect. You want to do that because you're implying it. It gives you room to create the tension, because remember, music isn't just about we got to keep playing the entire time until they tell us to stop. Music, the space there is a part of music too. It's all a part of the entire creative process. So that's the setup to get people going, the setup and the warm-up, because the service may go in a different direction. The person may speak, and depending on their tone, if they tend to drop it down and they go someplace else, well, you kind of have an out. You're not like full in, all 4 tires down, gas just going ahead, because then now there's no stopping you. And people are not really ready for that because it kind of came out of left field and it's at breakneck speed. So you want to get people like, hey, we're about to do something here. That's the purpose of the licks and the space. Let's take a look at a couple of examples here on this setup and warm-up. We have Glenn Gibson and Tribbett and Jonatha Nelson employing the same kind of setup and warm-up strategy.
There's nothing else to do but to celebrate. Okay, I don't know who I'm talking to tonight. I said there's nothing left to do but to celebrate. I give you glory, I give you praise, cause my enemy. Anybody ready to bless the Lord in here tonight? I said, is anybody ready to lose your mind cause the devil lost again? I need everybody to jump with me like this. Say, I give you glory, I give you praise, cause my enemy.
So again, you want to build and hit with a lick, and that's it. That's the setup and the warm-up. Introduction to the route. So the route, a route in shout music, is simply a repeatable, loopable motif that's simple, probably from the pentatonic scale, or something that you may have heard before. But before you get into the actual route, this is the setup for the route. By this point now, the key is established. People are getting ready. Somebody may be in the back someplace screaming or something, or maybe somebody just took a lap. So now you know that the atmosphere, this is charged now. All right, so now you got the point. You're at the point where you're going to say, okay, you're going to shout. We know it's coming. So right before we do the actual tempo, you're typically going to have like a tense 5 chord, right? Like you got your a dominant altered chord for A flat, You're going to have this. Just build it up. You might do a hit, all right? Do. And you're going to have something like that, all right? Just to build up into it. You might be on that for a while, that 5 chord, and then you might hit it again. And then, the person may say something, may continue to exhort and say, something that, some of y'all standing there just looking at me, we need to praise God, or whatever they may say. All right. And to kind of inspire people to, to get along with what they're doing. Now, in order for you don't want, this is not the point where now because he said that, you have to introduce it. Okay. And now you still the 5 chord, and on that last hit, the drummer may hit that the kick drum. The drummer may hit the kick drum or the hi-hat, okay, to get into it. Now, you're going to begin to introduce the actual route. And like I explained, is a motif or something simple, a simple melody that people can realize and hear, and it can be repeated again and again. Let's take a look at the experts, how they employ the route introduction.
I say I love the Lord.
shout, it's always a good idea to have several motifs or several themes that are repeatable. You can do I Love Lucy, the ice cream truck, if you want to do that racing song, whatever it is that you may have in mind. All right. So with that route now, like I was doing before, I think I may have done this. All right. You can just keep repeating that. And you may have the drummer. Now, you have an established tempo. Y'all are shouting, but you're not full out shouting yet. You know, somebody, again, maybe in the back just, you know, screaming or whatever. Somebody just ran around, did whatever they did, and you're warming it up. Because you can actually kind of go into that and just kind of stop and have the kick coming. And I guess people are really excited because, again, the silence brings tension. It's a part of the music. So even in the route, it gives you space. Because if you jump right into the shout, right into the main drive, you have nowhere else to go. You're getting there. We're getting to this point. We're not quite there yet. Things are being warmed up. We're there, but we're not all the way there. So you want to push people home too quick because you might have all of that, and then the person that's speaking may get a look from somebody, and okay, we gotta move on and move on to the next part of what's happening. But that gives you space because to stop in the middle of a shout, like on a dime, you can do it, but it's really awkward when it just starts off and then it stops, and people are looking at each other like, what just happened? And I've been there, I've done it, and I've seen it happen plenty of times. With the main drive now, we're full on into it. The tempo is going, people are going, and everybody's shouting. So you got the kick going, snares going, so everybody's doing it. And that whole thing, right? So with that, the diminish, back to the one. Okay? And now you're gonna do that for a little bit. To break that up, another thing we can do a part of the main meat of the main part of the shout is when the drummer just does the cymbals, right? They're doing the cymbals on the 2 and 4. It's boom, so you can do something like you want to do something like this. Something like that. That's around the diminished scale because it gives you that big tension to break back into the. You can do that again, the diminished to 1. All right, and you can do that for a little bit with the snares, not with the snare, with the drummer with the cymbals. Okay, and you're around that. So to move on from that now, you can go right back into the part of the. Because this is the part when you're going in. All right, and doing the whole shout thing. So you can do that for a while and do some diminished movements with the diminished chord. Whatever. And just to break it up. It's the same theme, but just a different way to express it. Because you're breaking it up either with the diminished chord or the drummer just hitting the cymbals. So when you do that, you can kind of come out of it. If you have an organist, they're going to be holding that note. And you can have that just the cymbals with the drummer going before you get right back into the breakdown creates the tension. This is why people, well, it would explain largely why people like the bass drop whenever they listen to EDM, electronic dance music, or some kind of popular music, because it separates the frequencies. What we have now, when you're doing like something like a snare, right? Notice there's no bass line. I'm going to play an example here for you. I believe it might be Glenn Gibson again. And listen to what the drummer's doing. Either they're hitting the cymbals, which are higher frequencies. There's no kick being played. There's no bass being played. That's, again, to give the music space to breathe because we're using tension, not just in space, but also in frequency. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Use frequency as well to kind of give the ear something that is missing. Because, again, to geek out on you, we actually have a spectrum of sound. Most humans can hear between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. Instead of trying to fill everything all the time, we leave some of the lower ends and then we go to the higher ends of the frequency so we can hear something like, you'd hear something like that and then no bass being played, no foot pedal on the organ being played. A guitar player would do something like that. Like, or you can do it on the keyboard as well. But that gives it, with the organ, it's better suited for this type of music because of the the drawbars. That's what makes the organ the best thing for this. A piano sound would accompany it. But this would explain the organ, why people like it so much, because you can manipulate those frequencies with the simulated pipes on all of the drawbars, because it leaves space for the music to breathe and for people to anticipate it. So once you're up here and then you come back with the bass drop, and the kick comes back in, you get the bass going. And that's what gives it the difference now between just the boring, all this, just bass, or all higher sounds. So the breakdown helps to separate the section and bring extra tension that is outside of just silence. Now we have another route or a secondary theme. Then you can go back into the same thing you were doing before. So it gives you space. It gives you a bunch of options. Even if you just knew about 2 or 3 routes, that gives you options and it gives you space instead of just jumping right into it. Because if you break it up in sections like you would think a song, the same way with a song, if you heard, Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, Adele, just, break out and singing a song and just belted with everything she had in the first 4 notes. Like, man, where else is she going to go? She has nowhere to go. That's what happens when you don't have your structure to when you're playing chant music. So finally here we have our outro, right? So you're going to leave in this type of thing where you have you may have 2 hits or 3, whatever. I like to do 2, right? On that. Now, you just don't want to just stop it and everybody they're done. What I like to do, and typically you'll hear, is something like that kind of movement from the melodic minor, D flat melodic minor, and then we end up on, of course, A flat, and then diminished. And you may have something still going on, a beat still going. You can get into different songs and different things if they decide to sing a song, and you can move on from there. But the structure here is you're either going to have a melodic minor, if you pay attention, chords that are similar to something like this, and then you're going to have some kind of minor structure. Let's take a listen to an example to what I believe, again, Glenn Gibson does here with this sort of outro. To wrap up and recap what we spoke about the setup and the warm-up, or the pre-praise break, the introduction to the route, what the actual route is, now we're in the route, the main drive, the breakdown, we create tension, helps to separate the sections and to build tension, our secondary route or secondary route theme, and the outro. If this has been a blessing to you and if this has helped you, you can check out my free guide. You can download that at gospelprogressionsuniversity.com/Gospel Keys Pro. I get into a little bit more of this concept as far as church music is concerned, but you can go ahead and check that out, especially if you're just kind of intermediate, just in the beginning stages, or even further, and there's some things that you don't understand about how gospel music and some of the scales actually work. That will definitely help you. I'll leave the link in the description, and you can go check that out now. Again, this has been Gospel Progressions University. My name is Chris Moses, and I will see you in the next video.